let's talk some potential candidates here. It's very early, but I've been texting some agents, some people in the industry, just to get a gist of kind of what names would make sense at some of these jobs. Let's start with Virginia Tech, guys. They're in the ACC, a proud program, one that their atmosphere is incredible. The fan base is really strong, and Frank Beamer is the reason for that. So I'll start with one name that, people bring up, and that's Shane Beamer at South Carolina. Would he be a legitimate candidate and someone that would be interested in following in his father's footsteps?
He's definitely an intriguing candidate, and I think he's the guy that if you talk to Virginia Tech fans, like they're going to mention him first. But
I just don't see him leaving South Carolina for Virginia Tech at this point. It's easy to make the connection. I just don't see it happening at this point.
All right, some other guys here potentially, and I'll just mention a few. You guys add, subtract, whatever. Bob Chesney, James Madison is a name that's come up. Yep. I've heard Curt Cignetti, Indiana. I think that's a stretch at this point. Tyson Helton. Tyson Helton at Western Kentucky. You mentioned Charles Huff at Southern Miss.
Charles Huff comes up a lot for that one on my end.
Why would Charles Huff make sense there?
I mean, he's done nothing but win in his career to this point. I realize things ended poorly for him at Marshall, largely because, you win a conference championship and you essentially get your walking papers or split with your school because of your relationship with your AD. But he's been a really successful coach. He has a deep ties to that area. I think he's somebody that a lot of people think could be very successful. Bob Chesney, if you're looking at G5 coaches, to your point, Bob Chesney is another name, and James Madison that has come up quite a few times in my hand. I wonder if Jamie Chadwell, it's not going well at Liberty, but he's a guy a couple of people have mentioned. But I also think Virginia Tech's going to have options outside of the G5 head coaches if they want to go that direction too. This is a job that's going to attract a very wide pool of candidates.
Bob Chesney is a name that makes a lot of sense. Currently coaching in-state right now. One of the things that's going to be attractive about Bob Chesney for different schools that could have openings this cycle, including potentially Virginia Tech, is ADs and high-ranking officials within athletic departments like not only success, but success at multiple places, a track record of success at more than just one place. And with Bob Chesney, you've seen him be a program builder at several different places at this point. He's a name that would make sense for that. Charles Huff, like was touched on already, has significant ties to the mid-Atlantic region, just coached in the state at Marshall, has experience at Penn State, and also has just a certain respect level in terms of his ability as a head coach, to the point that he's gotten looks for P4 jobs before.
Do we feel that Virginia Tech is, one, we know football is a leader there, but do we feel like they're about to ante up? Because it certainly seems like that from the president's statement, that they need to make a major move here now because big picture here, as you guys know, college football might not look the same 5 years from now with all these TV contracts coming up, discussions about a super league, maybe further consolidation of the sport, maybe expansion in the Big Ten, expansion in the SEC. And Virginia Tech's always been a valuable target potentially, especially for the SEC, one that makes sense. And Virginia Tech, certainly by the statement by President Tim Sands today, certainly seems like they're trying to position themselves to make sure they don't get left behind.
I'll say this, and got distracted by a phone call just now while going through just what I was saying previously, but some other names to go along with those two that have come up on my end that would make sense as possibilities for Virginia Tech in no particular order whatsoever. Ryan Silverfield at Memphis has probably deserves more credit for the job that he's doing there. And I think he's putting himself in a position where he could be on the radar for some P4 stuff going into this cycle. Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator at Miami. Miami's a potential ACC championship, potential playoff team, a potential national championship type team with him leading the way for that offense. We saw what he did last year with Cam Ward. He has experience in state at West Virginia. He could maybe be a name to keep an eye on. Also, you guys know when it comes to replacing a head coach, sometimes administration, AD like to find a different sort of profile compared to what they had previously. Brent Pry, a defensive head coach. So not saying this is 100% going to be the case, but sometimes ADs like to switch it up and find someone that is on the other end of the spectrum. And obviously Shannon Dawson, an offensive guy. Brian Hartline.
I would put decent money on Virginia Tech hiring an offensive coach. That is not reporting. That is just like history of following.
That's history. Everybody, the trend is you go the opposite side when something fails. Exactly.
So two more quick ones. Brian Hartline has gotten looks for P4 jobs before. You could see him being on the radar potentially for something like that. And then another one who's currently a head coach, but somebody with an offensive background, GJ Kinne at Texas State. Yeah. I think he's putting himself in position to be a hot name once again this coming cycle.
And GJ Kinne was somebody that got looks last cycle for a couple of the P4 jobs that were open as well. And it doesn't really, at least like right now at this moment, it doesn't seem like any P4 jobs would be coming open in Texas, which is like the jobs that GJ is usually linked to. So sometimes
Sark's not on the hot seat.
Who's not on the hot seat?
The joke. I said Steve Sarkisian's not on the hot seat.
Give it a couple more weeks, Brandon. We'll see.
I know.
So two other ones. What do you guys think, just in terms of how much they would make sense of this? Andy Kotelnicki at Penn State, offensive coordinator there, obviously has the experience that he does under Lance Leipold and played a significant role just in
incredibly creative offense, and one that gets schemed up so well that defensive coordinators are very impressed every time they go into a game day.
And in that region right now, so in the Mid-Atlantic region, he's been on the radar for as far as being a guy that is ready or maybe ready to make that jump to being a head coach, including potentially at the P4 level. And I don't know if this is going to be Virginia Tech or somewhere else, but Pat Fitzgerald is definitely going to be a name worth keeping an eye on heading into this cycle. Pat Fitzgerald wants to be a head coach again. And we all saw what Pat did at Northwestern prior to that ending like it did well enough that he was on the radar at different points for NFL head coaching jobs. I wonder just what ends up being a potential fit there for him. And
he fits that hard hat approach at Virginia Tech.
He does.
But he's also more of a defensive guy, so it would go against what Chris just said. But there's nothing like about somebody like a Pat Fitzgerald, whether it's Virginia Tech or someone else this cycle, just a name that people should definitely have on the radar, whether it's for that or something else, just as a name to remember when it comes to different things.
I don't know about you guys, but I fully expect Pat Fitzgerald to be a coach next year somewhere in college football.
Same. If we're just throwing Pat Fitzgerald's name out, like this is not something somebody else has brought up to me, but like he knows how to handle a school with some academic restrictions, and UCLA is the school in that position. Although if I was him, I'd rather have Virginia Tech. I'd also throw out Will Stein for that job. He's going to get thrown out for a lot of jobs this cycle.
Which job?
The Virginia Tech. Well, he'll also come up for UCLA. Don't worry.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Will Stein played at Louisville. He was a quarterback there. Like he is familiar with that area of the country, and I just think there's always a couple of coaches every cycle who get thrown out for every job. And I think Will Stein this cycle is one of the ones that's going to get positioned to be a name brought up over and over and over again.
Yeah. I think we go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say, just to close the loop on the Pat Fitzgerald one, depending on what happens with Kirk Ferentz in Iowa, that's one that I think could make a lot of sense also. So you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't Kurt or doesn't Pat's son currently play it?
Yes, he's there. He's there.
So that's one that, like, we'll see what happens with Kirk. I know it means by saying right now that Kirk is in his last year at Iowa, or that he's planning on moving on. But if because people always like to speculate about that with Kirk, that's one that I think could make sense for Pat, and obviously has a lot of experience.
Matt, you may have gotten the same text as me, but when Pat Fitzgerald's lawsuit got settled, I was immediately got a text saying, "Hey, look out for Pat Fitzgerald maybe to come to Iowa as a special assistant this season." So.
Hey, I've gotten some messages about that. So.
Yeah.